Okay, I see everybody enjoyed the article that I read yesterday, which mentioned that COVID vaccines may have caused excess deaths. We've obviously had a lot of deaths in the West for the last 3 years, and I think in most countries for the last 3 years, and they haven't stopped in spite of the fact that the pandemic has stopped. And so if you're interested in that, please watch that video. Now, I did put a couple of links in that video to the original articles. Sadly, they have, in a very peculiar fashion, stopped working. I will put the link for this article under the video, and I think we'll be safe with this article because I don't think this is the kind of article which is often censored on YouTube. But let's have a look at the vocab and grammar and see what we can get. So, receptionists now outnumber GPs at 90% of surgeries. Outnumber means that there are more receptionists than doctors. Shock analysis reveals one practice has 22 backroom staff, they mean administrators, for every one doctor. So they have 22 administrators for every doctor that they have. So how bad is the situation in your waiting room? So, admin staff now outnumber GPs. Remember, GPs is another way of saying doctors. It means general practitioner. It stands for general practitioner, but it is a doctor. Admin staff now outnumber GPs at over 90% of surgeries, Mail Online can reveal amid the never-ending appointments crisis. Some practices have 22 backroom staff, such as receptionists, for every one family doctor. Patients' rights campaigners today demanded NHS officials, NHS stands for National Health Service, we have a National Health Service in the UK, so NHS officials investigate the unjustifiable variation uncovered by our analysis. Critics claimed that practices have gone overboard on hiring idle workers. Now, when you go overboard, you go too far, you do too much of something. And they're suggesting that they have hired too many idle workers, workers who don't work. If you are idle, you are lazy. If you are bone idle, you are very lazy. So these are idle workers, workers not working. Saying pen pushers, these are people who work at a desk. If you're a pen pusher, I suppose it's quite a derogatory term for somebody who works, sitting at a desk. Pen pushers are sitting pretty while phone calls remain unanswered. So if you are sitting pretty, you are doing okay. In fact, you're doing very well. You're in an enviable position, a good position. And so these administrators, these pen pushers, are sitting pretty while phone calls from people who need help, they feel unhealthy or they have symptoms, phone calls remain unanswered. Unrelenting demand. There are a lot of good collocations in this article. Unrelenting demand means demand that never stops. When something is relentless, it keeps going, it never stops. So unrelenting demand for GP consultations has been compared to the rush for Glastonbury tickets. Glastonbury is a very famous music festival in the UK. Yes, I have been there before. No, I didn't buy a ticket. You just jumped over the fence when I went there. But Glastonbury tickets are very expensive and they're very difficult to get. So with millions of patients competing for limited slots every morning. Okay, so there's far too many people asking to see the doctor and not enough doctors. This is what the article is about. It doesn't bother me at all because I don't like seeing the doctor. They scare me. Insiders estimate general practice as a whole is short of, to lack. If you are short of money, you lack money. So remember that that combination. Always learn new words as phrases and not as single words. So insiders estimate general practice, and they mean doctors, the whole industry of health, really, of seeing people when they have some kind of minor problem. As a whole, is short of around 7,000 family doctors. And that's what GP means. GP is a family doctor, a local doctor. And so they lack 7,000 family doctors. They are short of about 7,000. And these doctors earn six-figure salaries. So six-figure means, 1,0,0,0,0. That's six numbers. That's six-figure salary. So anything above 100,000 is a six-figure salary. And £100,000 a year is a lot of money. So on average, that's what they earn on average. Some earn less, some earn more. Oh, whoopsie daisy, sorry about this. Let's get rid of that. Press the wrong button. Doctor numbers have dwindled over the past decade. That's an interesting expression. When numbers dwindle, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So doctor numbers have dwindled over the past decade. Notice we use present perfect because we're talking about an unfinished period, 10 years ago until now. Yeah, that helps you understand present perfect. Doctor numbers have dwindled over the past decade, while patient lists have soared. Yeah, so the number of patients has soared. Patient lists have soared, piling pressure on surgeries already struggling to cope. So when you pile pressure on, you put pressure on. It's another way of saying putting pressure on. You could replace that word with putting pressure on surgeries, or piling pressure, and it just makes it even stronger. It makes it more emphatic. They're already struggling to cope, these doctor surgeries. Mail Online's analysis involved figures submitted by practices themselves to the NHS in April, the latest available. Full results are available in a searchable table. Matrix Medical Practice in Chatham, Kent, had 22.5 full-time equivalent admin staff on its books compared to its single fully full-time equivalent GP. So they had one doctor and 22 and a half admin. I don't know how you get 22 and a half, but 22 and a half, I suppose it's part-time, 22 people and one part-time person who are all admin. So the majority of admin staff are receptionists. Yet, the term also indicates estate workers and managers. Notice the fanboys conjunction, yet. Yeah, it's in fanboys, and so it joins two main clauses. And yeah, we do use a comma when we join two main clauses with a fanboys. Similarly high rates were logged at Kirby Road Surgery in Dunstable, Bedfordshire, 14.7 full-time equivalent admin staff per GP. JS Medical Practice in Tottenham, London, 14, and East Lynn Medical Centre in Clacton-on-Sea, Essex, 13.9. At the opposite end of the scale, Borough Green Medical Practice in Sevenoaks recorded having 11.3 full-time equivalent GPs and only a single full-time equivalent admin staff. Okay, so this is the opposite end, where you get 11 doctors for every admin staff. So you can see how different the doctors' surgeries are in the UK. Sometimes you've got loads of doctors and only one admin, but a lot of the time you've got 22 admin staff and only one doctor. And I actually think this is a very big problem in our school system as well. There are far too many administrators and not enough teachers. I actually think the administrators are starting to outnumber the teachers, and that shouldn't be the case. But practices like these were in the minority. Of the 5,967 practices in the NHS data with at least one full-time equivalent GP, only 7.5% had a 1-to-1 ratio of family doctors to admin staff or lower. I think that's all clear. Notice that we use hyphens for the compound adjective, yeah, a 1-to-1 ratio. 1-to-1 describes the ratio. Dennis Reed of Silver Voices, a campaign group for senior Britons which has advocated for better access to GPs, said, "You can't really justify one full-time equivalent GP to 22 backroom admin staff." I agree. It definitely needs to be investigated as to why there is absolutely huge gap, it should say, why there is an absolutely huge gap, yeah, there needs an "an" in there, they've missed a word, between different practices and the number of backup staff compared to doctors. Notice backup has a hyphen because it's a compound adjective. He added that the data suggests some practices are focusing on managing patients through telephone systems rather than treating them. Yeah, and noticing the managing patients rather than treating patients. It's a good parallel structure with the rather than. And when you use rather than, you ought to make sure that both parts are parallel. They're equal to each other, and that makes it easier to read. With these staff acting as gatekeeper to access to consultations. It sounds to me like this is actually Dennis Reed of Silver Voices, who knows how to speak English well. Okay, and of course, Silver Voices, they are a campaign group for senior Britons, so it means older Britons. Yeah, perhaps pensioners, but perhaps also people in their 60s. You know, I expect to have grey hair when I'm in my 60s, and we often say silver hair, yeah, but I'm certainly I'm not getting any younger. Okay, when there is a crying shortage, Yeah, now you normally call something a crying shame. That collocates very well. It was a crying shame, meaning it was a terrible shame, an awful shame. But I have never heard a crying shortage, but that's interesting. A crying shortage of GPs and pressure on patients to be able to get an early GP appointment. I would have thought. Now, I think Mr. Reed knows how to say that properly. I think he said would have thought. And all of my students will know that that is a big mistake. We do not say would have thought. It should be would have thought. But this is certainly a mistake I made as a child. And so it's a bit of a shame that it's still being made when you're writing for the biggest newspaper in the world. But you see these mistakes all the time. It is a real shame. So would have thought is, of course, correct. This is... we're using, hold on a second, I would have thought, yeah, we're using it in a metaphorical, hypothetical sense. This is a past hypothetical. So we need would have thought. The priority in all practices would be to increase the number of GPs rather than the number of backroom staff. And yeah, I did change that because would be is better than... would be, yeah, I would have thought that the priority in all practices would be to increase the number of GPs rather than the number of backroom staff, Mr. Reed said. Some practices may have lost their sense of priorities. Look, they've got it right there. They didn't say may have lost. They said may have lost, and that's the right way to do it. There seems to be too much emphasis on the bureaucracy of it all rather than the actual frontline service. I certainly agree. Mr. Reed said patients might feel like they have no choice but to describe intimate health matters to receptionists in order to justify getting a GP appointment. I think that's very true. Now, we're going to stop there for today, but please click on the link below if you want to read more about our health system. I'm sure there's plenty of other good words and phrases in the text. And please, if you have any questions, put them below the video and I'll be delighted to answer them, provided that they're not immediately removed from the comments section, because many of the comments that go on my videos are. Okay, I'll see you all in the next class.